Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I want to talk about this story here in Baltimore that happened about a week ago. We had a situation involving young black men and a white motorist. So apparently there was an altercation between a white driver and black squeegee workers. And as you all know, squeegee workers here in Baltimore, at least, are predominantly young black men. And they try to earn money by offering to clean people's windshields. And there have been complaints about squeegee workers. Some people are saying that they are a public nuisance. People have complained to the police about various altercations with squeegee workers, situations involving vandalism of vehicles, situations where squeegee workers have been accused of blocking people's path in the street and all that kind of stuff. So there's been controversy, and a lot of the controversy is racial in nature to some degree, in a way that's not really publicly voiced. But for the most part, a lot of the people that complain are people who are white drivers, and they're complaining about these black young men who are squeegee workers. So you had this situation involving a white driver. He approached the intersection with his vehicle, and apparently he got into some kind of argument or disagreement with some squeegee workers. And this man decided to take a baseball bat and get out of his car and pursue at least one of these black squeegee workers. And at one point, one of the squeegee workers takes out a gun and shoots and kills this white man. So there's been a lot of talk about this incident. There's been a lot of talk about the problem of squeegee workers in the city. There have been articles about this. There have been interviews with squeegee workers. And I just want to share some of my thoughts about this situation. First of all, this is a horrible tragedy. And I'm going to talk about it probably from a different perspective. First of all, here's a white man who decided to get out of his vehicle with a deadly weapon. Arguments can be made that those young squeegee workers, or that young squeegee worker in particular, had every right to defend themselves. But in order to make that kind of assessment, we need to know more facts. We need to know whether or not the squeegee worker who fired the gun, if that squeegee worker had the gun on him, and if he fired that gun in an immediate response to a threat from that driver with a baseball bat. Or could it possibly be a situation where the squeegee worker saw this person and then they left the scene and then came back with a gun and proceeded to shoot and kill that driver? So those are some of the things that we need to know in order to understand whether or not this is in fact murder and whether or not this person should be charged with a crime. Another thing is this, what prompted this guy to decide to take out a baseball bat and get out of his vehicle? Was he threatened with any kind of weapon? Was there any kind of physical threat to him? So all of these things need to be taken into consideration to determine whether or not, a crime was committed. But just on the face value of it, here's a man with a deadly weapon who makes a decision to get out of his vehicle with that weapon and pursue somebody. So, it seems like this is likely to be a case involving self-defense. But again, we need to know more information about this incident. But I want to talk about the bigger issue. So there's all this talk about squeegee workers and why this is a problem in Baltimore. And at the root cause of this whole issue is the problem of poverty. Poverty is a big factor, because if these young men had resources and opportunities to earn money without hanging out in the street, offering to clean people's windshields, they would be doing those things. They would be doing something else. They would be earning money in other kinds of ways. And this speaks to a lack of opportunity. It speaks to a problem of poverty. And it also speaks to the failings of not only our political leadership in this city and in this state. But it also speaks to the feelings of the family. Anytime you're in a situation where your children have decided that the only way they can earn money is to be on the streets, offering to clean windshields, that means that there's a failing in the home and in the society. I was reading one article and it was talking about how one of these young men who's a squeegee worker dropped out of high school in the 9th grade. And he basically said that he wasn't learning anything in school. And the article went on to talk about how like 40% of the young people in high school in Baltimore City earn a grade point average of 1.0 and lower. A 1.0, as you all know, is a D. According to this information, a lot of these kids are failing in school. They're doing horribly in school. And that speaks to, some of the problems with the educational system, but it also speaks to problems with parents. How in the hell are you going to let your kid go to school and not earn at least average grades? I mean, it makes no sense. And it speaks to the lack of parental responsibility. Anytime, how is somebody going to allow their kid to drop out in the 9th grade? That speaks to a failing on the part of the family. It doesn't, even if you had state-of-the-art schools with all kinds of resources, if a child is not taught to value education, none of that will matter. They will still fail. They will still drop out of school. They will still find themselves in the cycle of poverty. And unfortunately, that's what we see happening in our communities. A parent shouldn't allow their kid to just drop out of school. A parent should be there to be an advocate for their kid, to make sure that their children get the best education possible so that they can have the best opportunities and outcomes in life. But unfortunately, we don't have that in a lot of areas. So that's one aspect, the parental responsibility aspect cannot be ignored. But we also have to look at these politicians and their failings. Many of these politicians get promoted to higher office despite the fact that they have produced little to no tangible results for the community. I was reading articles about how this problem of squeegee workers goes back to the 80s, goes back probably even further than that, where you have these young people that don't have any opportunities. And I will say this about the young people that are squeegee workers. I don't attack them. I have respect for young people that have that natural entrepreneurial spirit. These young people could be doing, they could be engaged in illegal activity. And, of course, this is, from what I understand, being a squeegee worker is illegal, but they could be doing worse illegal things besides that, like selling drugs or, robbing somebody, committing burglaries or armed robberies and stuff like that. But instead, they're trying to earn a living without engaging in those types of high crimes and issues. So to some degree, I respect those young people. We need to be doing more to provide for them, to provide better schools for those young people. Because even though the parent has some responsibility in terms of ensuring that their kids do well in school, the school system has a responsibility as well. Anytime you have a school system that allows over 40% or more of the young people to be earning like a 1-point grade average, a 1.0% grade point average, that means that school system is failing those young people. There's something wrong with a school system that produces those types of results. And we have to ask ourselves about the CEO of the schools, the superintendent of schools, or whatever fancy title they have now. What are they doing to correct this problem? What are they doing to address this problem? Because as long as you don't have a quality education, you're not going to find yourself in a position to have opportunities. You're going to find yourself being a squeegee boy when you drop out in the 9th grade. Like, what kind of skills do you have? What kind of life can you provide for a family when you drop out in the 9th grade? So, the schools, the bottom line, that there's all around failure in this city, failure in the home, failure in the community, failure among these politicians that could get promoted time and time again, elected and reelected despite the horrible conditions that we see in this city in terms of the crime, the violence, the failing schools. This situation where young people are so desperate that they're either selling drugs or they're out here trying to make a dollar by cleaning people's windshield. Baltimore deserves better. And it's time for us to all get involved. It's time for this city government and the state government to finally address the issue of poverty, to finally do something about this situation. Perhaps if they tapped in to these young people's entrepreneurial spirit and gave them the skills and the resources that they need to prosper, to use this energy and spirit and initiative in a more positive direction, perhaps we would see a better city. But those are my thoughts. I had to share my thoughts. And the last thing I'll say is this: it's just unfortunate that all of these people are all of a sudden concerned about violence, when a white man is the victim of violence. Meanwhile, every other day in this city, you're hearing about another young black man, more likely than not, being killed, and they don't have that same kind of energy around those deaths. They see that as just routine. They see that as just like to be expected. But when this white man dies, all of a sudden, all these politicians that have something to say. Now, all of a sudden, people want to chime in and be concerned about the violence in this city. It's a damn shame, man. And more needs to be done to address this problem. And if these politicians aren't producing results, they don't need to be reelected. So anyway, tell me what you think about this issue. And this issue is bigger than Baltimore. I'm sure that many other major cities experience these problems. So tell me what you think. Please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, and hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. Peace and blessings. Have a great day.